Hi there, welcome to or welcome back to Tiff Reads Books, where I read books and I talk to you about them. Today, it's my weekly yap, and I've had a very long day of work and almost was like, I can't do this without coffee, but I'm gonna try and do it without coffee because it's 7:45 at night. I still have a bunch of chores to do, so we're gonna try our best to get through this with some water. And then I'm gonna do my nightly stand in the kitchen and how many glasses of water do I need to drink until I feel unthirsty. So, that's where we're at today. It's one of those days. I am still reading the 2 books I talked to you about last week, plus finished a book and added another one that I started. So let's start with The Day of Fallen Night. I'm not much further than I was before because I got really far ahead of the buddy read. We kind of readjusted and decided to go ahead and read it over 2 months because a few people had some stuff come up, and it was just, I was like really far ahead, which I was really behind in the last one for when we did Priory. So I'm at like 60% almost and decided to go ahead and put it on pause. So I'm still like mid on it. I think it is too long, and I still really, I'm wondering if if I switch to read it physically and I read all of the like South chapters and then all of the East chapters and then all of the West chapters, if I will feel a bit better about it. So I don't think I said this before, but it is, I did say it's the prequel to Priory of the Orange Tree, but I didn't give any more context beyond that. The dog has arrived. Can you go lay down for me? Thank you, sir. So, A Day of Fallen Night is set 500 years before Priory of the Orange Tree, and it follows the characters from the different kingdoms which we meet in Priory. So in Priory, we have the West, which is under the rule of the Berethnets. They are descended from this knight who sainted himself and created a religion. It's called it's the virtuedom, I guess. So they have the 6 virtues. It seems to be like loosely inspired by maybe Catholicism, Christianity in general, but it's not, they don't really have a god. They just have like a single saint. And then like the knights of the different virtues, and everyone has like a patron knight. So loosely inspired by like a monotheistic kind of strict religion. They have like no sex before marriage type rules and those types of things. But they believe that the line of the saint protects them from the rising of the Nameless One, which is this big, huge, fiery dragon who can destroy the world essentially. And they believe he was like trapped or killed by the first knight saint guy, whose name I can't remember because it's my least favorite religion in the book. So they follow him. So they believe that their one queen protects them from the rising of the Nameless One. Each queen has birth to one single child who is always a daughter and always looks almost identical to her. And I am convinced it's parthenogenesis, which is when a female gives birth to a clone of itself, essentially. It happens rarely in reptiles, but magically, it could happen by magic. That's my headcanon. So that's what they believe. And so my belief aside on the whole like having one single heir, it basically just sets it up for you to like put your kingdom constantly in peril, because a single heir is not typically how things were done because reasons. My boyfriend has gotten very mad at me every time I say, oh yeah, this book has a single heir. He's like, why? Because he's like a history guy. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why do they do this? I'm like, I don't know. For the plot. So that's the West. The East is kind of loosely inspired by like Asian cultures, and they actually worship dragons, but not the same dragons as are in the West. They're kind of inspired by, I don't know why I'm going that way. That's the East if you're looking at a map. So I'm going that way. Anyway, maybe it'll be the West when the camera flips. I don't know. So anyway, the East, sky dragons. Actually, they're water dragons who are like the Chinese kind of dragons, where they're very long and spindly, and they've got manes and horns, and they're ancient wisdom, and they kind of revere them as gods. So we're following someone from that religion and culture who is the illegitimate daughter of an emperor, and she was like stolen away to this mountain and then was like raised as a god worshiper, and then has it revealed to her that she's the true heir because she's the oldest offspring of the emperor. So whatever happens with her, that's kind of a spoiler, wakes these dragons. Okay, so then that have been in a slumber for like a few hundred years. So that's all happening in the east. And then in the south is the actual priory, and that's kind of my favorite area to be. I do like kind of what's going on in the east, but it's very slow. It's the same as what happened before. The east was always very slow and feels like an afterthought. So then down in the south, we have the priory, and they are a matriarchal society that lives in this very small community around the orange tree. And the orange tree gives them fruit, which gives them Sidon, which is a magical power. And this magical power allows them to kind of be somewhat fire resistant and also have some of their own fire magic. And they have kind of this like hierarchical community where you have like people who are like initiated, and then people who are like sworn to like uphold through war, like warrioresses. I always imagine them as like Xena warrior princesses. And then you have the prioress, who's like the highest, and it is based around this religion that kind of fights against the religion in the West, because they believe that their first mother, because they refer to like that, the prioress as the mother type, or she's the mother, and they're all daughters of the mother, even though they're not biologically, and they know that, it's just like their religion. She is who the Knight of Virtudom swore that he married, but they follow her. But because they know in their religion, they believe that she didn't marry him and that she actually slayed the dragon, not the knight. And so there's like this like disbelief between the two. And they're just kind of a cool society. But anyway, so that's the like the background of what's happening in these three different places. And obviously, so that in this book, this is the one where the dragons come back, the worms as they call them, which are the evil ones, but also the good ones come back too, and we start to learn about the balance between the two and how one oppresses the other and keeps the world in balance and all of this stuff. So we have this like a rise of these dragons, which have also come with this like sickness, like I think they call it the red fever, and it basically makes everyone feverish and like they get really hot. It's essentially like a dragon disease, it's dragon-born disease. So a little bit of zoonotic stuff going on, but it sounds like there's a lot going on, but that's like all that's happened in like 450 pages. So apart from me not spoiling it. So I realized I didn't do that the last time. So that's the synopsis. It's very hard to give a synopsis because it's like a lot is happening, which is why I still think it should have been broken up into 3 different books that were like 350 pages each. And I would have kind of loved it that way. So I am pausing, which means I was able to pick up another audiobook. I was like, let's pause on that. Let's pick up something short and sweet that I'll finish in a little bit. Not necessarily sweet, because I'm really bad at picking sweet books. So I got On a Red Station Drifting, which is by this author. I'll put the book cover here and the name. This is one book set in this larger sci-fi world. And all of the books are like loosely connected. And so I found this because I was looking up more like sci-fi written by women that was maybe a little bit diverse, and I found this recommendation, and it's this really interesting world that is kind of inspired by Vietnamese culture. I don't know the author's relationship to that culture, so if this is all cultural appropriation, I apologize, but I don't know. I just saw this on a recommendation list, and I thought it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. It was a little confusing at first, and I think that's just because it's a novella set in this world. So you don't really have to read the other stuff. I think if you're paying attention, you'll figure it out, and you just have to be comfortable with being like, what is happening for like the first hour of the book? But we're following 2 women. And do I remember either of their names? Lynn and I don't remember the other one's name because I just really didn't like her. I just really didn't like her. I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. So basically, we start off with Lynn anyway, and she's a magistrate who's like on the run, and she's arrived at this planet where she has some family, and she's hoping that she can kind of hide there. But the person who's running the planet currently, in the stead of her husband who has gone off to war, does not want her there because she's kind of views her as like an elite. Well, I mean, she's a magistrate, but the woman who's in charge is just a housewife, and so she's like worried about people trying to take her power, but then she also wants to like, it's that whole like I'm better than people think I am type of thing, but she's also like just not nice. I mean, no one in here was really nice. Like, she bothered me a lot. Like her tone bothered me. But what we end up having is this kind of battle between these 2 really strong female characters, which is the other recommendation. Other recommendation that made me pick this up is strong female characters. So we have these kind of battle for power between these two female characters, and some of what I liked is it kind of does the whole like let's battle through poetry type thing in a couple of scenes, and I enjoyed that type of stuff, like weaving messages into a poem and imagery and things like that. But essentially there's a war going on in the background, and that makes everything even more tense. And since our magistrate, Lynn, has essentially like abdicated her position after she wrote like a scathing letter against what the emperor is doing in this war, they could get her for treason. So she's kind of in hiding, and even though she's in hiding, and she should be like doing everything she can to like go along to get along, right? She's like, no, they're giving me things to do that are beneath me. How dare they? And like kind of felt that, but also like, girl, you're gonna mess this up. But she ends up getting herself like woven into like family drama, and I really enjoyed it. I think it was like a 3.5 or 4, somewhere around there. It made me want to read more of the series and more from the author. On Sunday, I started The Lotus Empire, and so that was yesterday. That is the 3rd book in the Burning Kingdoms trilogy, which is the Jasmine Throne and the Oleander Sword. I finished the Oleander Sword at the beginning of this month, and my hold came through on Friday for The Lotus Empire. And I was like, okay, we're dropping everything. We are listening to this book, because I was like, the end of the Oleander Sword had me in an emotional chokehold, okay? Like, oh, these characters, I am obsessed with them, and it's so dark. It's so dark, and it's so like brutal and emotional, and I listened to 4 hours of the book yesterday. So me being like, I don't listen on the weekends, but then my boyfriend was like, can we do like opposite room stuff? And I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. I got audiobook and Animal Crossing. So I did that for a couple hours. I did that for like an hour and a half, and then I had been in the car by myself because me and the dog went somewhere. So anyway, The Jasmine Throne is the first book. So essentially the brief, like what's happening is in the Jasmine Throne, and this is the continuation of the story, is we have Ahirani, which is been colonized by Persia Vipa, I believe is how you say it. And that kind of kicks off all this stuff. So in Persia, we have Malini, who her older brother decided that she needs to burn for their religion to make this like special magical fire. And she said, fuck you. So he imprisoned her in Ahirani in the temple, which is where she meets Priya. And Priya is a daughter of the temple, but she's kind of in hiding because they're not supposed to have this religion anymore, but she was raised in this religion. And then she managed to be saved when they burned everyone in the temple. And she's been back in the temple because her temple sister, who was raised there with her and wasn't there when they killed everyone, married the local ruler, and so she then brought on Priya as her like housemaid type thing. And so she was like, all right, Priya, you're gonna go guard the princess, because Chandra, the emperor, sent his sister Malini into this temple to basically rot until she agreed to burn. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. Bhumika is the woman who married the leader and protected Priya. And I love Bhumika so much. So we essentially have these like 3 just like powerhouses of female characters who I love them so much. Each of them is so different in the way that they are fighting this resistance. And so we kind of end up with Priya freeing Malini, so because Malini is like, I will be the empress. I will rule my brother. But Chandra is the younger of her 2 brothers. And so first she has to get her oldest brother, Oditya, to abdicate his throne, essentially. And he kind of already has, which is why Chandra is in power. And he is like, I just want to be a priest. I just want to be a chill dude. And so it kind of does this whole thing of like, if you choose to not do violence in a violent world, what happens to the people that you love when violence is being done against them, type of thing. Like if you have power and you choose to be like, no, I just want everyone to be peaceful, what ends up happening? So that's kind of where everything is. There's also this resistance faction, which is, they end up getting called something else later, and I can't remember what they're called in the first book, but it's led by Ashok, who is the temple brother to Priya and Bhumika. and he is leading this like resistance faction to try to free Ahirani, and he is more violent about it than Priya and Bhumika are. Bhumika is trying to do it, but through her like manipulations of court politics and things like that. So we have all these different sides of things, and we just have this continuation through into the Oleander Sword, through the Lotus Empire, and like if you like how Robin Hobb rips your heart out with characters, Tasha Suri does it just as hard. Like, and then we have the fact that it's sapphic on top of that, and so it has like a different type of layer than a lot of the fantasy that used to, because it's also Indian inspired. So it's set in a different type of world. It has a really cool nature plant magic thing, and also this fire magic. So we have like some elemental magic stuff going on. We have some actual like three very different religions happening, because we have the nameless god, which is who Aditya chooses to follow, and then we have the mother, which is the one that Malini is supposed to burn for, and then we have the Yaksa, which are in Ahirani, and they're these plant gods, and they actually come into the world and you get to see them. So obsessed. Like, so I was in the car a lot today for work. I was in the car for 4.9 hours because I'm tracking it this week with this spreadsheet, or little Canva tracker. So I'll show you next week what it ended up being, and I'm tracking how long I'm in the car, how many miles I drove, and how many hours of an audiobook I listened to. I did 5.77 hours today of The Lotus Empire because of the speed I'm listening to it at, which got me up to 48% of the book. So I'm probably going to finish it in the next 2 days, because I have 2 more days of being in the car for an extended period of time, and then I have 2 short days after that for work. So I will probably finish it in the next couple days, and then I will be a emotional wreck. That's what's going to happen. So then maybe I'll pick back up into A Day of Fallen Night. And I genuinely do think that some of the reason why I'm like on A Day of Fallen Night is because I came into it right after the Oleander Sword, and I was like, where's the things happening? So last but not least is the Sword of Kaigan, which I am also extremely emotionally invested into. I am almost 60% into that as well. I've got like less than 300 pages. I'm gonna go read some of it tonight after I have to take the trash out. It's tour night, but I'm gonna read some more tonight. So I think I briefed what the Sword of Kaigan was about in the last one, so I'm gonna save it on that because this is longer than I wanted this to be. But the Sword of Kaigan is M.L. Wong's adult debut. I believe this is kind of a standalone of a YA trilogy. And I'm just obsessed with our main female character, Misaki, who is just one of those very complex female characters who have a lot of power but have to hide it in the society that they're in. And I love her. So I'm going to leave it at that. This was a little longer of a little yap session than I wanted it to be. But if you want to see more of my like random updates about these things, you can follow me on Instagram. I post a lot in my stories about what I'm reading with little updates. So you can catch me there. Here's my Instagram page. I am doing silly things this week in my posts for the most part. I've gotten tagged in a silly like book height challenge, and I just decided to like lean into the ridiculousness. So you can follow me there if you want to see more from me. If you don't, that's fine. I will be here later this week with something else for you, and I will see you soon.